On this extra long episode, we take questions from you, the listener, about us, the podcast, movies, wild swimming, and other fun topics.
But first, an epic traffic fail. But this time, from the traffic cops?
Get ready for a skinny dip. Here's episode 50 of the Bangkok Podcast. Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a guy who sewed a maple leaf onto his backpack in 2001 and landed in Bangkok with nary an idea of what to do next.
And I am Evo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to the Big Mango.
As an American, did you ever sew a fake Canadian flag onto your backpack?
Can't imagine I would ever do that. We're American. Everybody sews American flags on their backpacks when we come around.
Sure you do.
Yeah.
Well, as is customary, I want to start off the show with a big thanks to our supporters on Patreon who help us keep the show free of those annoying ads that I always skip over when I listen to podcasts. And as is the custom for supporters of the show shout-out level on Patreon, we have someone to thank.
Indeed we do, Greg. This week, it is Terry Blackburn.
Right. Now, as you know, I always like to do a little bit of research on our patrons. Some might call it stalking. I call it research, bit of a gray area. And I found something interesting about Terry. Now, he's a married man now with a respectable career, but in his early days, he was quite the brawler. Now, check this out. I came across this story in a newspaper. It seems that years ago, he was on a road trip, and he stopped into a pretty rough bar for a drink. And of course, because he was a brawler, he managed to get into a fight with a town tough guy. Never a good thing. Well, Terry kicked this guy's ass so thoroughly that one of the patrons at the bar that night, who happened to be a karate instructor, came away so impressed that he added a new belt to his dojo's classification system.
Wow.
Yeah. So now, when you study under this particular sensei, the belts go white, yellow, gold, orange, green, blue, purple, brown, red, black, and Blackburn. You know what? So far, the only regular human has attained the Blackburn belt. You know who it is?
I have a funny feeling I do.
Chuck Norris.
I thought you might say that. Oh, goodness. Well, to help support the show and get access to some bonus content, load up on some cool swag, and clearly get Greg to make up completely unbelievable things about you.
Don't know what you're talking about.
You can get signed up for that at patreon.com/Bangkok Podcast.
Thanks, Terry. Now, before we get to answering questions from our guests, let's talk about a bit of news that will make you happy, Evo.
Oh.
This is a story that just came out the other day. Now, apparently, 10% of Bangkok traffic police have failed a test on traffic laws. Now, as someone who's always getting pulled over by the damn police, does this make you think that maybe you're sometimes not in the wrong here?
No. I clearly am never in the wrong, right? Let's get that out of the way first, right? Except for that one time when I was in the wrong. Okay. So let me make sure I understand this. 10% of Bangkok traffic cops failed a test, not got something wrong, but flat out failed a test about traffic laws.
That's right. The paragraph in the story in the Bangkok Post says about 370 traffic police officers, or 10% of officers in the capital, have been banned from issuing infringement notices after they failed a test on traffic laws, according to the Metropolitan Police Bureau.
Now, that's saying something for a couple of reasons. One, to fail a test in Thailand takes a lot of work. I'm
as a former teacher who's forced to pass his students.
Right. And as a person married to a woman that administers a school, I know how difficult it is for someone actually to fail. So to call these guys out as abject failures must mean they've got 0 out of 0. Also adding to that one is the laws are impenetrable. Well, actually, that's the wrong way to say that. The laws are so vague, they are open to interpretation. Like the quote-unquote law that says you must stay in the left lane if you're a motorbike. Totally not true. That's not what the law says. But if you ask 90 cops, 95 cops will tell you that that is actually illegal, even though it's actually not. So, it makes me kind of feel good that they're probably wrong. But at the same time, what the hell am I going to do about it?
That's right. You can't fight City Hall, right?
I certainly can't find a cop who wants to write me a ticket or take $200 from me. They go, okay, chances are you're wrong, but how can I prove that the guy's wrong? It's not happening. I mean, it's true. It's another one of those, this is Thailand and I can't fix Thailand situations. So I'll just have to be, cautious and careful and hand him 200 baht instead.
Yeah, the correct question to ask isn't usually what's the law. It's what's the law on this particular block today while you're here.
Exactly right. It is all subject to interpretation. Oh, welcome to Thailand.
Well, I'm going to come to a little bit of the defense here because it said, despite the failure of 370 officers out of Bangkok's 3,719 traffic police officers, many were found to have scored full marks from 50 questions.
Wow.
The topics, many officers attained high scores for concerned legal knowledge, including the Land Transport Act, the Motor Vehicle Act. He said, however, they obtained low marks on knowledge of new traffic regulations.
Oh.
Now, I think this gives them a little bit of leeway. Like, these are new traffic regulations. I think they take some time to filter down. Now, of course, if they're, how do you define the word new? Is that 5 years ago? Is that last week? I don't know. Yeah. But new traffic regulations, new rules, new regulations, they take some time to get in your system. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here. I don't think this is as big a deal as it's made out to be.
And also, just an interesting point. So 50 questions.
Yeah.
And with information about, Land Transportation Act and that kind of stuff. That sounds oddly like the exact same questions you are asked when you go get your driver's license.
Wouldn't it be funny if these exact same tests?
I think it is. In which case, I'm not surprised because that test is completely nonsensical. I mean, there's no right answer on the page. Which is the right place to park? None of those listed on there. You can't park on a railroad crossing. You can't park in a handicap space, unless, of course, you're handicapped. You can't park on the right side of the road. None of these are the right answers, which, I'm not surprised they're failing. I wonder if this may speak more to the test than the actual officers themselves.
Quite possibly. Either way, you need to continue to keep your eyes peeled when you're tearing around Bangkok on your bike.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to hide behind that number saying, "Hey, you're part of the 10% that doesn't know what you're talking about, dude." Yeah, that's not going to help me.
Well, as you may have heard in previous shows, listeners, we asked you to send in some questions for us to answer on this. Now, this is our big 50th show. That means we've been doing this season of the Bangkok podcast for almost exactly 1 year.
Yeah,
can you believe it?
Crazy times. 1 year, and we didn't kill each other yet. Yay.
No, it's probably because we're 500 meters apart, but it's gone by real quick.
It has. Yeah, it feels like we're still just getting the format down, and it's been 50 episodes. But,
it's constant learning experience.
Constant learning experience is what we're doing here. But what we're doing on this show is we're taking questions from you guys, right? That's the whole idea. People who have been listeners of ours for a while have sent in questions, and that's what we are going to answer on the program today.
Yeah, you want to take the first one from our listener named Sean?
I will do my level best. Okay. Here's what Sean asked us. I love going wild swimming.
Sounds crazy.
Such as swimming in the seas and in rivers, which are usually ice cold here in North Wales. Yes, I would imagine, Sean, they are.
Yikes.
So my first question is, do you guys ever go wild swimming in Thailand? And if so, where are your favorite places? And do you have any memorable experiences? That's question number one, Greg. Let's start there.
I've never heard that term before. I kind of say I'm kind of a fan. Wild swimming. Is that nude swimming? Would that be considered wild swimming?
To me, it's just what we used to call swimming. It just wasn't in a pool. So if I think that's what he's talking about. If you're going somewhere, and he says seas and rivers, which is fine, right? But not in a swimming pool.
I submit that swimming nude in a swimming pool is still wild swimming.
That's hot tubbing, which is a different thing altogether. But I'm a big fan of that. So you wanna take the lead here? Are you a wild swimmer?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks, Sean, for saying that question in. That's an interesting one. I've been to several islands, many islands actually, and I've always swam in the beach and gone snorkeling. My favorite snorkeling experience in Thailand has been on the island of Koh Lipe, which is down by the Malaysian border. And it's just, stunning postcard style beaches and water and coral and fish. And so that was my favorite ocean snorkeling adventure. But the one that stands out most was I went to an island one time called Koh Koot, which is down in the southeast of the Gulf of Thailand near the Cambodian border, close to Koh Chang. And there is a waterfall there called Klong Yai Ki Waterfall. I had to look that up on a map because I couldn't remember. It was years ago. But this is a beautiful forest waterfall surrounded by trees and undergrowth, and it goes down into a big, deep pool, and you can dive into this pool. So I had
wow.
many hours of diving into this jungle waterfall pool, which is probably, I don't know how deep it is. I never got to the bottom, but it's,
Oh man.
yeah. So that was really beautiful. That was like, again, from a postcard, you know, so you got wild jungle surrounding you on all sides and this beautiful, beautiful waterfall. So that was my favorite experience with wild swimming
Sure,
in Thailand.
sure. That sounds great, and it's similar to mine. I am a scuba diver, so I have done a fair bit of scuba diving here in the kingdom. It's not the greatest diving in the world, but nonetheless, I have done it and swam in several islands and beaches. So the sea is always a good place for me to go swim because it's the only place I can float. I don't know how to float on my back in a pool. I never learned to do that. Nope, can't float. I can swim, but I can't float. But in the ocean, I float with no problem. So yes, so wild swimming, I guess, works for me there. The first 3 months that my wife and I encountered Thailand back in 2015, we stayed in Ranong, in the western part of Thailand, which is the rainiest province of Thailand. So there are, I mean, I remember standing in Ranong looking around at the mountains that surround the area and seeing 3 different waterfalls. I mean, they're just everywhere, especially in the rainy season. I mean, it's just
wild swimming everywhere.
yeah. I mean, they're just right there. You just go, and yeah, we would definitely go swim at the bottom of those waterfalls. You know, swim up to where the waterfall is falling down the rocks, and have that kind of, you know, fall over the body. We would even crawl up or climb up. There's usually a path on one side or the other of the waterfall, and you get to the top. And there's usually a big pool of water before it cascades down. So I've done a lot of that. Just some beautiful spots in there of Thailand. Now we live in Bangkok, and there's a big river. Greg and I can see this river every single day. It's a lovely wide river that I see people swimming in. No way in hells am I going swimming in the Chao Phraya River.
Yeah, I think you need to have a pretty bulletproof immune system to go in there and come out every day.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that's real wild swimming.
Yeah, I would need an encounter suit before I step foot into that water. But yeah, I wouldn't try it in Bangkok proper, but there are definitely some beautiful spots to go swim. I mean, this is the tropics, man. There's water everywhere around here.
Yeah.
So as long as it's not the Chao Phraya in Bangkok. I'm sure the Chao Phraya is beautiful when you get further up north. Just not here, man. It's the bottom of the toilet. You don't want to be here. We're kind of in the colon, if you want to think of it that way.
That's charming.
We're at the colon, so not a great place to be hanging in the digestive system.
I'm sure the TAT is going to be in touch right away. Can we use that for our new tourism slogan? The colon of Thailand. Well, Sean also sent in another question about hiking. He said, I'm a big fan of hiking. I've done a multi-day organized trek in North Thailand as well as a longish day walks by myself in various Thai islands. Do you guys ever go hiking in Thailand? If so, when and how has it been? Me, I'm not a huge hiker. In fact, I prefer more of the laying in a hammock kind of activity. But on the odd time that I have gone walking in Thailand, I really do like walking around the village of Doi Mae Salong in Chiang Rai province, which is one of my favorite spots in the whole country. And that's where the tea plantations up in the northern mountains on the border with Burma. And it's absolutely beautiful. And any walk in that area is going to be breathtakingly pretty any time of year.
That's good. That's good. So for me, as far as trekking or hiking goes, so I like hiking in mountains, and again in Ranong, mountains all over the place. We did a fair amount of hiking, especially up the waterfalls that we just talked about. Also, the island of Koh Tao, you know, also known as Death Island. I believe TAT is trying to get that going as well.
Again, they're going to be in contact.
Any day now. So Koh Tao is not a very big island, but it's a very hilly island, and there are some spots which you can take a motorbike as long as your motorbike is powerful enough to get you to the top. But to do the fun rock hopping and climbing out to the edge, that does require you to get off and walk through the jungle for a bit. So that's that to me has been fun. I haven't done any hiking at all here in Thailand or in Bangkok proper because it's a gigantic city and there's a taxi right there, or my motorbike, or the BTS, or any other number of ways that I can get from point A to point B that is a less sweaty option than trekking through the city. But there's plenty here to enjoy.
Next question comes from my man Vincent. So he sent in a few questions, and his first one is, what are your top 5 favorite Thai movies of all time?
All right, I'm going to let you do this one to start.
Okay, I thought about this, and I don't see a lot of movies anymore at all because I have a kid.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't get out much, and if you are someone out there who doesn't have a kid and is thinking of having a kid, get ready to not do much for a long time. So I used to go to the movies a lot. I don't go so much anymore. The Thai movies I have seen, I really liked, but I find out I just don't see many. So I had to think hard to come up with 5. I came up with a solid 4, and I'll throw a 5th one on the end. Anyway, in order.
Okay.
My top favorite Thai movie is Ong Bak, the unbelievably badass, brutal martial arts film with Tony Jaa. The next one is the complete opposite of that. It's a very, very lovely, cute movie called Fan Chan about 2 kids who grew up in the countryside in the 70s. And it's just a really, really cute sort of coming-of-age story. The next one is called The Eye, which is actually a Hong Kong Thai production, and it is one of the scariest ghost movies I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
It's terrifying. Yeah, it's terrifying. And it's about a woman who was born blind, but she gets corneas transplanted from a donor.
Right.
And then as soon as she wakes up and starts getting her vision back, she starts seeing ghosts, and they're not nice ghosts. And it turns out the woman that she got her corneas from lived in Thailand. So she travels to Thailand to try and find out who this woman was, and found out she committed suicide because she's kept seeing all these ghosts, and it's just this crazy, intense, scary story.
Wow.
Number 4 is The Shutter, another very, very scary ghost movie. My friend decided that he was going to start calling it The Shitter when he saw it because he said I shit my pants.
Wow, these sound great.
Yeah, and the last one it was kind of a silly, stupid movie called Bangkok Traffic Love Story. It was basically the BTS contacted a movie company and said, we need a movie to promote the BTS. Can you come up with something? It was this woman falls in love with this engineer who's a BTS guy, and it was cute and good for a laugh. But that was probably the last Thai movie that I saw, which was, I don't know, 6-7 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, and I know there's a lot of really good Thai movies out there. I know a lot of people who have said great things about many, many Thai movies, but I just personally haven't seen them. But those are the 5 that I remember seeing and liking.
I'm going to have to, my answer is not going to be great here. I haven't seen many Thai movies. I just recently, probably 2 or 3 months ago, went on a kick where I was looking for some Thai movies, and I'm a Netflix subscriber. And the recommendations that I got, one was called P. It's basically 2 things I love: ghost stories and strippers. So that was pretty great. So yeah, there's some girl from Isan area comes to Bangkok to make money, and guess where she winds up? Someplace on Soy Cowboy, and she happens to be the granddaughter of the local witch, and doesn't do what Grandma Witch told her to do, and so she becomes a demon.
As you do.
Yeah. So I can't say it's my favorite movie because it was pretty terrible, like really terrible. So, but that's one Thai movie I've seen, and the other one was, I think it's pronounced Hangover 2.
Is that a Thai movie?
That's got Bangkok in it. So that's it for me. Now here's the deal. Now you're telling me about these scary movies. Let me tell you, I love crazy Korean horror movies.
Oh man, they've got some good ones.
Old Boy, just some creepy
Vengeance Trilogy.
Creepy stuff, right? So if you're telling me this Thai stuff is similar to that, or there's something else that I should be looking at, I'm gonna look up The Eye and the Shutter to see to see if those are somewhere in that neighborhood, because I would love to see more of the local stuff. That would be great.
Vincent's second question.
Yes.
What is the podcast recording program you use? Yeah. So you what setup do you use?
Okay.
What's your microphone setup?
Got it. Yeah. So again, I could, much like we did for our patrons, we did an entire episode where we asked each other questions ourselves back and forth, and I talked podcasting way too long. I could do it here, but I'm going to try not to. So here is my current recording setup. At the base is called a Zoom H4n, and it's got microphone inputs where I can plug in microphones, or it actually has a built-in onboard mic with it, which is quite good. And that's kind of my base. Everything goes into there. I can record on the road, or I can plug it directly into my computer and use it as an audio interface. So everything starts with the Zoom H4n. Into that right now, I am speaking into a Shure SM58 microphone.
The workhorse of the industry.
You bet. If you've been to any music show, any improv, any stand-up comedy, that's the microphone that's on stage. Because when a comedian or somebody else does a mic drop, and they literally drop the mic on the stage, if it's an SM58, that's fine, because you're not going to hurt this thing. It is nearly indestructible microphone, right? So I have two of those, because one for me and one for my wife, and that's how we record. And that goes into my MacBook Pro, and the software that Greg and I are using right now, since we are 500 meters away from each other, is something called Zencaster, and it's I guess VoIP. I don't know how to even classify this software, but it's.
I call it an audio dashboard.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, right? So it's recording my stuff natively on my machine, and Greg's is recording his stuff natively on his machine, and when we when we hit stop on the recorder, it uploads both of those files to the cloud because magic. And it does a really nice job.
And then I pull them down from there, and that's where I pull them into Hindenburg, which is a radio journalist editing program, which is really slick and really, really good.
Yeah.
And that's where we edit the show. And as for my mic setup, mine's much simpler. I just have a Rode Podcaster, which plugs into my 27-inch iMac on my desk. There we go.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Vincent's third question. Jesus, Vincent. How do you choose your podcast topics?
Oh.
Good question. Good question. Well, usually we just have a beer and start talking.
Not
true. Or something pops into my head, or something pops into Evo's head, or we see a story, or we see a blog post, or something happens to us while we're out and about in Bangkok, and we think, that might be interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have them planned weeks in advance. Sometimes we make them up 10 minutes before we start recording.
We have done that. Oh, what? Wait, you had the topic? I had the topic? What? Yeah. Occasionally that happens. We're usually pretty good about that ahead of time. So as Greg said, we just kind of pick things that seem interesting. Our theme is fun things in Bangkok that we want to talk about. There's got to be an aspect of living in Bangkok that makes sense. And so that's our kind of our litmus test. But we communicate a lot just during the week through Facebook Messenger, and we keep a pretty detailed set of notes in Google Drive that are how we can plan out what our topic's going to be, as well as what are the individual sections of the program. So it's all through Google Docs, and just a lot of open communication, collaboration. And once we've decided something, it gets written down on a sheet, and then we promptly forget about it until time to record. In some cases.
Fourth question from Vincent. How much time does it take to prep a BKK podcast? Well, let's get through this real quick. We record on Thursday nights.
Yep.
About 9:30 after my son has gone to bed. Usually takes us about an hour to get things out of the way. That includes the Patreon bonus and the main episode. And depending how tired I am, I can edit it that night, which probably takes another hour and a half. Or I wait till the next night and edit it, which takes again an hour and a half. But once all that's done, then we need to do all the grunt work, which is filling in all the metadata and creating the blog post on our website.
Yeah.
And coming up with the Facebook description and the Twitter description, which Evo does all that on one of the aforementioned Google Docs.
Yep.
And then we just go back and forth, and I copy and paste here and copy and paste there. Then we have to edit the episode, and then I have to get the graphics ready, and then I have to slap all that together and upload it via FileZilla to our host, and then tie all of those little pieces together, and then schedule it for release on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, which is
so it's a lot of work and it's complicated, but once you get going, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I usually tell people plan on a 5-to-1 ratio. So if you're going to put out an hour-long show, and I never want to put an hour-long show out, but if you did want to put an hour-long show out, you're probably talking about 5 hours of effort. Whether that's planning, which is what your question was, how do you prep? I guess you said, but planning, to getting all those little pieces done, to editing, to loading, to make sure it's socially shared properly, and all those things. That's about it.
Yeah, one last question. Geez, Vincent, you're pretty verbose today. Will you do a piece on the jungle being built next to Bangkok, the Pa Nai Krung? I find that place fascinating.
What?
I had no idea what you're talking about, Vincent, so I had to go and look this up. And I'm going to go out on a limb, Evo, and guess that you've never been here, because I certainly haven't.
No.
Apparently, it's a big jungle park out next to Suvarnabhumi Airport with a jungle walkway you can go on and walk around and take pictures and look down on the trees in the park and the jungle below. So, no, I've never heard of it until Vincent, you mentioned it. So sounds interesting. Although out by Suvarnabhumi, that's a hell of a long way to go to look at trees. So
Yeah. So they're building a jungle in what used to be a swamp, right?
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Only
That makes sense.
only in Bangkok. Well, I need to do some research and find out what this thing is.
If they can build an airport there, they can sure as hell build a jungle.
I guess that's true. So, well, hopefully, Vincent, we got you got good answers out of some of your items. Shall I take the next question?
Go nuts.
So, listener Dan writes in and says, I want to know more about Silom, Surasak, Chaturangkrung Road, and probably food-related favorite street cart, favorite restaurant, and actually where to drink. So I think you probably should begin by the people who may not live here all the time to give them an idea of where that area is. He talked about Silom, Surasek, and Chaturangkrung Road. So where is that?
Yeah, it's an interesting area because that's where one of the big night markets is, where all of the sidewalk shopping is. That's where one of the red light districts is, Pat Pong. And it's also a big business district during the day. So there's a lot of tall buildings down there and offices and things like that. So it's a pretty interesting area. I know it very well. I used to work down there and spend most of my afternoons there in an internet cafe, typing away on a computer, which we talked about on our Patreon bonus episode, where I wooed my wife, then girlfriend, now wife.
Nice.
But you asked about food specifically, so I really like Somtam Convent, which is on Soy Convent, just off of the main street, and it's a place that does really good barbecue chicken, lap mu, and sticky rice. And they used to close at 8, but they now recently extended their opening hours to 9, I think.
I think that's the one I'm thinking of as well. And if so, I agree. That is some fantastic. And again, sometimes always good, but that place is something special about it. So yeah. I have to agree with you there. Yes, concur.
And of course, once you're done there, you go right across the street to Molly Malone's, which is an old standby, a good old fashioned pub. And again, like I mentioned in the Patreon bonus stuff that we recorded earlier, that little section of office building isn't going to be around for much longer, and that includes Molly Malone's. So
yeah, going to be knocked out. Molly Malone's is that place is great, especially when you look on the menu. If you're going to eat at Molly Malone's, I highly recommend getting English pub grub. They do a good. Don't get the fish and chips; it's not very good. But the other items I've had, whatever the ham steak with ham bone or whatever they call it, I forget what the name is. Really fantastic, great chips, wonderful place. But yeah, go for the pub grub if you're going to Molly Malone's. Now, unfortunately, the beer selection sucks.
I don't think it's that bad. They got some real good ciders. They're not cheap, but they're good.
No, they're not cheap, and you're right, they're not bad. But it's an English pub, and English pubs, especially in Bangkok, aren't known for their fantastic beer scene. However, here's the good news: right across the street, right next door to Somtam Convent, is a new place that's called MASH, MASH, and it is a fantastic craft beer and burger joint.
Oh, interesting. I don't know about it. I'll have to check it out.
Tiny. It's very small, but and I know this is going to get some eyebrows raised. There's people that are going to start typing right away. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it might be the best burger I've had in Bangkok.
Ooh, that's a pretty bold claim, my friend.
It was pretty darn fantastic hamburger that they had.
Better than Fatty's?
I've had Fatty's, and it's a great hamburger, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to put this place in the same running with it. It's a totally different thing. I mean, this is almost like a gourmet-style, fancy-dancy burger with great craft beer. And Fatty's, by the way, also has good craft beer as well. So, but if we're talking about Silom, it's I will say this, it's definitely the best hamburger in Silom. You got to go try it.
And one more thing I want to mention too, if you go all the way down to the end of Silom where it touches Chaturangkrung Road, it comes to a T intersection, so you can go left or you can go right. Yeah. If you turn right and then immediately on your left, there is a Muslim restaurant, and it is called Muslim Restaurant. It says so on the front.
It's like Indian restaurant right next to you, right?
Yeah, and apparently they've been doing their thing there for going on like 60, 70 years.
Really?
And they do some pretty good Muslim food, some chicken biryani, some really nice egg dishes, and some goat and mutton dishes. It's a really, really good place to stop in. It's like a bare bones room with a couple of tables around and like a counter full of food. But every time I've gone there, it's just a really, really nice, interesting place to stop.
Wonderful. I'm going to have to go. I know exactly where you're talking about. I think I just drove by it the other day, so I will go. I will give that a shot.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, all good.
Dan also asked, favorite secret, not touristy spot for you? Dan, how dare you? I have favorite secret spots, but they are earned over many years.
Right.
You have to find those on your own, man. And my favorite secret spots might not necessarily be anyone else's favorite secret spots. So
that's true.
Yeah, I definitely have a few favorite hidden places to go, but they're my places. They're my places, Dan. How dare you?
He hasn't even taken me to these damn places, Dan. So he's not about to divulge his secret. Mine are simple. Wherever they're serving craft beer, there you go. That's my secret spot. Not a big secret.
Next question comes from Amy. And this question is directed at me, and she says, what is Greg doing about school for his son? Oh, God. School. Amy, I could talk about that. I could do a whole, not just a podcast episode, I could do a whole podcast about school, sending your kid to school in Thailand. I'll keep it real short. I don't know. He's only 3, so right now he's in play school. Next April 2018, we're going to send him to kindergarten, and we have a kindergarten picked out. What happens when he gets to grade 1 is still a bit up in the air because essentially you have 3 choices. You have the local Thai schools, the Thailand national curriculum, which is, I think I'm not going to be surprising anyone here when I say not very good. You have the international schools, which can cost as much as 1 million baht a year for grade 1 and up as they get older, which is so far away from being an option for us. It's like not even visible. And then you have the middle ground, which is sort of these bilingual schools that teach Thai and English, or Thai and Chinese, or English and Chinese, or French, or something like that. And they are of varying quality, and you can do a bit of research and find, I think, pretty decent ones. They're not going to be up to the same level as like Canadian curriculum or international schools. But I have Thai friends and Thai coworkers who have gone to these schools, and they're perfectly smart, intelligent, fine, normal, cool, fun people. So it's a crapshoot. Schooling here is a huge, huge thing, and it's even these bilingual schools are not cheap, but you got to do what you can do. And unfortunately, it basically comes down to what my son is going to get the best education that I can afford, and no more, which is a little bit sad, but that's the reality of living here.
The best education your money can buy.
My money can buy, which ain't a lot. So to be honest with you, my wife and I have talked about moving back to Canada, but because education there is free and it's world class.
Communist.
But that brings with it a whole host of other things that are just sort of, we don't really get into it now, but yeah, it's a hell of a topic, and sending a kid to school in Bangkok in Thailand is a big, big issue. And it takes a lot of thought, a lot of research, and a lot of preparation, and usually a lot of money. But there are options if you don't want to spend 1 million baht a year, and hopefully you can find a school that your kid will like, that I will like, that you will like, and that he will thrive at. But, there's no guarantees anywhere really. But, Thailand is Thailand. So that's what I'm doing.
Sounds like he's saying, I don't know, Amy. So
yeah, the short answer, stressing out. That's what I'm doing.
He'll be punting before long. All right, so final question comes in from Dylan, and I think this one is likely more you than it is for me, Greg. Dylan says, my son is Canadian. Can he get Canadian citizenship here? And does he lose his Thai citizenship?
Yeah, well, Dylan, my son was born in Thailand, and he is a Canadian citizen as well. He has 2 passports. It's pretty simple. You just go down to the Canadian Embassy on Ramaphore Road, bring a bunch of paperwork. It's all listed on their website, and his birth certificate, my marriage certificate. I was there with my wife as well. Fill out some forms, give him some pictures, give him the stack of paperwork, and a few weeks later, he gets his. I should say a few months later, he gets his passport. So yeah. However, from the Canadian side, if he has children overseas, he cannot pass on his Canadian citizenship to them because he is Canadian by descent, not by birth.
Right.
Otherwise, you could just have like infinite relatives down through history, all carrying on citizenship of your country, and pretty soon everyone in the world would have Canadian citizenship.
Recursive Canadian citizenship. Not good.
Exactly. So that's something to keep in mind. From the Thai side, it's really interesting because I have talked to very knowledgeable, experienced people who swear up and down that you cannot have Thai citizenship and another citizenship. I have also met really, really intelligent, experienced people who swear up and down that you can. And I, myself, maybe you, Evo, maybe you, Dylan, I know a lot of people who do have Thai dual citizenship.
Yeah. Is it your son?
Oh, sorry. Like a lot of people say you have to give it up when you turn 18.
Oh,
you have to choose.
I see.
Do you want to be Thai or do you want to be Canadian?
Right.
But I know a lot of people who have just sort of ignored that. And I think it's one of those things that if someone wanted to make it an issue, they probably could. But my take on it is that there are a lot of important people in Thailand, I'll just leave it at that, who have dual citizenship. So it's kind of a sensitive topic because if you suddenly say Thais can't have dual citizenship, then you might be creating a bigger splash than you want. So I have a lot of people who are adults and much older who have dual citizenship, Thailand and another country, and it's not a problem for them, but you do have to sort of keep that in the back of your mind. So long answer, there you go. Short answer, yes, he can get Canadian citizenship here. It's pretty easy, not real cheap, but it can be done.
Well, there you go. See, we are even solving immigration issues on the Bangkok podcast.
Yeah, let me just sort of reiterate that I am not an immigration lawyer and I don't offer any legal advice.
Got it. So that knocks out all of the questions that we had for the regular segment of the show. Thanks, everybody, for writing in. But we did have one person who wanted to participate in everyone's favorite segment of the show, and that is Love, Loathe, or Leave, where we look at one minor aspect of living in Bangkok and find out if it's something that the two of us love about living in Bangkok, loathe about living in Bangkok, or something that we hate so much it just might cause us to leave Thailand altogether. And this week, Mr. Matthew F., another Canadian, asked me this question on our official Line account. And he says, could you do a love, loathe, or leave on getting a waiter's attention in Bangkok?
Yeah, that's certainly something that drives you crazy sometimes.
Nong kap. That's all you have to say, right? No,
Yeah,
nong kap?
nong, which means like younger person.
Right. Which
Nong kap.
anyhow,
Okay.
that's how you do it. So okay, that's it. That segment's over. So no, really,
No.
Yeah, that's not it.
Because you can also call them no,
No.
which means mouse. No,
Right.
which is sort of like a little person.
But wait.
No. You might also hear that.
You say mouse in a restaurant in the Western world, it's like saying roach, right? Or fire,
Yeah.
right? These are things you don't say. But it's okay to say mouse
Yeah.
here. Well, Bangkok.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if waiters in Bangkok are trained not to look at you. Like, look away. It's like when you see someone on the street and you don't really want to talk to them. And you're like, oh, how can I pretend I didn't see them?
Sure.
I think that's what waiters here do. But I don't know if it's something that you love, loathe, or leave. But I certainly do not like it sometimes when they just look everywhere except at me.
Yeah.
I'm like, hello.
It was probably one of the bigger cultural adjustments I needed to do coming here, because I'm from a service-oriented country, because waiters and waitresses in America aren't paid a living wage, they have to be attentive so that they can get that tip from you.
Right.
Yeah, they are definitely on board with that. Not so much here, and it definitely took not just getting used to getting someone's attention, but I'm now to the point to where I no longer feel subconscious about raising my hand or doing other completely obnoxious things that my brain tells me is obnoxious to get the waiter or waitress's attention, because that's just the way that it's done here. I mean, you'll see people when they're put their last bite of food in their mouth, their hand immediately goes up and starts waving around because they know that's what they have to do to get someone's attention. That's just the culture, and I'm learning to deal with it.
There's one time where I got up and I actually walked into the kitchen to get a knife and fork, an extra knife and fork, because I couldn't get anyone's attention. I just walked into the kitchen and people were like, what the hell is this guy? And I just picked up a knife and walked out again.
Yeah.
Hopefully they got the message. But yeah, it's sometimes a challenge. Like you said, I think a big part of it was because in Western countries, the nicer you are, generally speaking, the bigger your tip will be.
Yeah.
But tipping is not really a thing in Thailand. It's kind of is, but not really. It's not expected. Certainly not 20 or 30% like it is in the West. It's more of like the change on the table.
Yeah,
is
the
tip.
coins. Yeah, the shrapnel. That's what you're throwing out. Yeah, a couple of
Exactly. So it's a different thing to get used to, but you get used to it, and as long as you're not in a huge rush, generally it's something that I just shrug my shoulders at. Meh. Love, loather. Meh.
Yeah. I'm going to put it in the loathe category. The good thing about, or bad thing perhaps, is you'll never have a problem placing your order, because the waiter will stand by your table after handing you a 14-page menu, expecting you to know exactly what you want right now. So that's weird enough. But anything after that, up until the check, like if you run out of napkins, you're on your own. Just go to another empty table and get them, because that's the easiest way to do it. Is just look around. All right, somebody else got what I need. Yeah, let me just go grab that. You'll be a happier person. Yeah. Hey, before we go, because we're wrapping up things, we're already long here. I need to point out the fact, something you might have missed it, Greg. We have a new review. So let me, just so that I make sure that I get it right. I made a couple of notes, because here's the deal. It wasn't a good review.
Ah, I see.
It was not a good review. Divine Madman is clearly dissatisfied with the last 49 episodes of this podcast. And now the good news is, Greg, you are mostly affable in his estimation. Mostly.
That's going on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Mostly affable.
Most affable, because at least the good news is you're called out by name in the review. Me? Nope. My name is not in there. I'm simply a replacement who isn't a longtime resident and bringer of frustrating superficiality to the show. That's kind of harsh, I would think. Apparently, you see, the show is far less informative, which I'm attributing mostly to the What's Happening in Bangkok This Week segment from the first season that you and Tony used to do.
Right. We used to read BK Magazine and read about what's coming up the following week.
Yeah, he was a big fan of that. He hates the Love, Loathe, or Leave segment. Oh, he finds it tedious, downright mean-spirited, and too often snarky. Which I have to agree with that last part. There's definitely no doubt about more than a little bit of snark in that last part. But that's
my middle name.
But it's not all bad. He ends his 2-star review with this sentence: occasionally there are some decent interviews.
Okay. Well, all right, fair enough. Hey, everyone's got an opinion.
Exactly right. But now here's the deal. That is our only bad review, at least in the US iTunes store. The next worst review we had was 7 years ago, when you and Tony got dinged for being, quote, a little unpolished but getting better all the time. And that was a 3-star.
In the big scheme of things, that ain't so bad.
No. So here's the bottom line. The show is no longer good-natured enough for Divine Madman's taste, and I'm assuming he's a much bigger fan of Peace and Order. If only we had like a national council for that or something. But anyhow, sorry you didn't care for it or aren't caring for it. I can't imagine he's still listening, but maybe he thought there would be a good review or a decent interview on this particular segment. Although we just did a Love, Loathe, or Leave, so I can bet you he's bailed out before this point. There's no doubt about that.
Probably. Well, if you're still listening, Divine Madman?
Divine Madman, yes.
Divine Madman. Well, yeah, thanks for leaving a review. Everyone's got an opinion on something, and they can't all be positive. You can't please everyone all the time.
I guess it's true. I guess that is true.
I guess thanks for listening to 49 episodes, or I guess about over 100 now, since you listened to all the first season.
Yeah. So he's got the good stuff going that way.
I will never give up the smarm, though. Never.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. You'll have to get rid of me before that's what's going to happen. And I'm sure I bring out the worst in you, which is it's a good trait of mine. I'm a giver.
Well, if you are the opposite of Divine Madman and actually do like the show and want to support it, you can just head over to patreon.com/Bangkok Podcast, where you can donate to several different types of tiers, one of which we will say nice things about you, or you can just get early access to episodes, to bonus content, and if you become a certain level of a patron, you can get even really cool custom-made swag, which you and I just had a meeting tonight to talk about. So yeah, if you want to support us on Patreon, then just head over to patreon.com/Bangkok Podcast and lend us your support. We really, really do appreciate any bit of support that anyone can give. And thanks to you for listening to the Bangkok Podcast. If you have something on your mind, or you just want to drop us a line to say hello, please leave a comment on BangkokPodcast.com or reach out directly to me on Twitter where I am BKK Greg.
Or you can send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, or line at Bangkok Podcast. We're very good at responding to comments, questions, and the heaps of praise just about anywhere. And if you want, go ahead and go to iTunes and leave us a review. Reviews don't really do anything other than they're a review, but nonetheless, you can go to iTunes and leave a review for us, especially if you want to say nice things. Should be a nice welcome change. For Greg Jorgensen, I am Evo Terra. We'll be back next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels, right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Chok di krap!
All right.
I'm doing this without my glasses, so I'll be all right. They're in the bike downstairs. I'm just not going back down to get it.
Well, it's okay. I got kind of an eye infection, so I'm doing it with one eye kind of half closed.
Podcast with one eye open, clutching your pillow tight. It's like a Metallica song.